We would like to thank everyone that worked together to make today possible. The Age-Friendly Council that started with the idea of an important topic that's on so many people's minds and affecting so many people's lives. The Chamber of Commerce for support in bringing it all together. The City of Carlsbad, Dina Navarrete, for being so instrumental in making so much of what is happening today possible. United Way of Eddy County, Kyle Marksteiner, for chairing the committee and organizing today's event. Eddy County Health Council, Mia Peacock, for organizing the vendors here today. Lakeview Christian Home for this beautiful facility we are in. Carlsbad Medical Center for the door prizes. Red Rocket for making it possible to get this video out to those who cannot be here with us right now. And all the vendors that are here, prepared to provide information on resources. I ask the Age-Friendly Council members to please stand and be recognized. Thank you for all of the help in preparing for today and for help in today's event. When you registered, you should have been given a little blue ticket for a drawing that we will be giving on later in today's session. So if you don't have a blue ticket, before the panelists come up, please go up and get one from the registration table. A little housekeeping, if you haven't already picked up your lunch, get in line to do so. I'm so sorry. The restrooms are on both sides of the stage. The men's restroom is on your left, and the women's restroom is on your right. Exits are behind you along the west wall, and another to your left past the men's restroom. Our first speaker, Julie Rogers, is the Community Engagement Manager for the Alzheimer's Association, New Mexico chapter, and a former social worker intern with the Colorado chapter. She holds a degree in clinical nutrition and social work with a focus on community-level interventions that support healthy aging and brain health. Her experience includes crisis response work with the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and supporting patients at the Rocky Mountain Cancer Center in Denver. Julie's dedication to dementia care is deeply personal. She lost her grandmother and great aunt to different forms of dementia and served as a full-time caregiver for an individual living with traumatic brain injury. As a result, she brings both personal experience and professional insight to her work with families navigating the dementia journey. To give us an introduction on dementia and Alzheimer's, Julie Rogers. Please help me in welcoming her.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. As she mentioned, my name is Julie Rogers. Today, I'm going to talk to y'all about Alzheimer's, about dementia, about emotionally responding to a diagnosis, how you can protect your brain, and ways that we're showing up for the community. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about the disease. We're going to get into the science of it just a little bit. We're going to discuss the importance of early detection, diagnosis, and what treatment looks like in the era of treatment for dementia. We're going to talk about coping after diagnosis, brain health, and resources. Before I begin, I want to share a little bit about what we do as an association. The association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia. We are a global leader in research with $450 million currently invested in research to end this disease once and for all. But while we pursue a cure and those treatments, we make sure we offer care and support services in the community and advocate for policies that support both caregivers and those living with the disease. Now I'd like to take just a moment and share a bit about the prevalence, some numbers around Alzheimer's and dementia. I think many people don't realize how common this disease is. raise your hand if you know someone, we'll start with this, in your immediate family who had Alzheimer's or dementia. How about a neighbor? Keep your hands up. How about a neighbor, a close friend, friend of a family, right? Look around. Almost every single hand in here is up. 7 million people are currently confirmed in the United States to be living with Alzheimer's disease alone, which is just one form of dementia. However, it's estimated that only 1 out of every 2 cases actually receives a formal diagnosis, so that number is actually likely closer to 14 million. You'll also notice on the right side of the screen in the teal box that women, we say, are double burdened by the disease of Alzheimer's. They are twice as likely to get it, and we're still studying about why that is. But also, who do you think typically becomes the caregiver in a family when someone's living with Alzheimer's or other dementia? Pretty much always the woman in the family. Another interesting fact is that this disease kills more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined, but until recently has not received the same national funding and attention due to historic stigma around mental health. All right, now we're going to do an overview of Alzheimer's and dementia. Before I go to the next slide, does anyone want to take a guess, a little stab at what the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia is? Yes, ma'am. So the answer was that her answer was that Alzheimer's is genetic, or dementia could come from a lot of different places, which in many ways is actually true. Alzheimer's does have a genetic component. Dementia can come from many sources, and that's because dementia is an umbrella term. Dementia is actually the name for not a disease state, but a cluster of symptoms that are changes in memory, thinking, or behavior significant enough to impact someone's ability to go through their day-to-day life. There are different diseases that can give someone the symptoms of dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common. It makes up 60 to 80% of cases. That's why you'll often see the terms dementia and Alzheimer's used interchangeably, but they're not quite interchangeable. Because something like Lewy body disease can also give someone dementia symptoms. Vascular dementia, which often follows stroke or heart disease, can give someone dementia symptoms. Stroke and traumatic brain injury can also give someone dementia symptoms. So dementia is not the disease, it's the name for the cluster of symptoms. Alzheimer's is the most common disease that gives someone the symptom cluster. I already shared a little bit about this, but the other important thing to know is that Alzheimer's and many other forms of dementia, but not all of them, are a progressive disease state that will gradually worsen over time. This disease state can go on as short as 3 to 5 years for some people, especially with something like Lewy body disease, or can go on as long as 20 years for some people. And there's no way to know for sure how long someone's disease journey is going to be. Now let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the brain of someone with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is an accumulation of proteins in the brain that should not be there. These proteins build up outside the cell and prevent the cell from getting the nutrients and the oxygen it needs, and prevents the cells from talking to each other. It also builds up inside of the cell, and then the cell can't do all its little functions because there's things building up inside that will eventually kill the brain cell and lead to cell death. What makes Alzheimer's different from other mental health conditions is that if you take the brain of someone who is normal, healthy, and put it next to the brain of someone with depression or schizophrenia or what we think of as other classic mental health conditions, those two brains to the human eye are going to look fairly similar. If you take the brain of someone healthy and put it next to the brain of someone with advanced Alzheimer's, we with our human eye could physically see the difference in the brain because of the cell death and loss that happens with Alzheimer's over time. So it is a physical brain change, not just a change in neurotransmitters or change in how the brain is functioning. It's a literal shrinkage. Now, just a quick overview of the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. We often associate memory loss with Alzheimer's disease and dementia, but it can actually cause a wide range of symptoms because those proteins don't just affect the part of the brain that allow us to remember things, but also the part of the brain that allows us to make good decisions, to judge depth perception, to gather time and place, right? So number one, most common memory loss that disrupts day-to-day life. And this is not losing your keys, right? Who's lost their keys in here before? Happened to all of us, right? But we probably find those keys in a place that makes sense. Ladies, we find it in the purse that we used last night. Gentlemen, maybe we find it in a coat pocket, a jacket, right? But if our loved one is putting the keys in the freezer or where we keep the dog food, then maybe there's a little more cause for concern. Challenges in planning or solving problems, especially if the disease is affecting the front part of the brain, which is where we make decisions. Someone might not be able to plan or think ahead. Difficulty completing familiar tasks. Maybe someone kept the finances for the house for 30, 40 years, always had a balanced checkbook, never missed paying a bill. Now bills are getting paid twice, bills are not getting paid at all, the checkbook isn't balanced. Or someone who was a great baker their entire life, never needed a recipe, could cook up a perfect cake. Now they can't even follow a recipe. Number 4 and 5, we typically see in association with driving, confusion with time or place, and trouble understanding visual and spatial relationships. Confusion with time or place might look like someone's been driving back and forth to the same church for 30 years, and now they're getting lost on the way there or on the way home. Trouble understanding visual, image, and spatial relationships, that's depth perception. Alzheimer's disease and other dementias can affect our depth perception, which can lead to someone who's never been in an accident in their life. Now they have scratches and dings all over their car. New problems with words and speaking or writing, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps specifically. Maybe the keys were placed somewhere that doesn't make sense, but somewhere someone with a healthy brain could remember how those keys accidentally got there. Someone living with Alzheimer's couldn't tell you how the keys ended up getting placed by the phone. Withdrawal from work or social activities, and this could be because the part of the brain that allows us to socialize is being affected, or someone might see a smattering of these other traits show up in themselves and choose to withdraw because they don't want people around them to notice that they're different. And changes in mood or personality, and this can go either way. Someone could have been Pollyanna throughout their entire life, right? Happy, go lucky, very positive, get the disease, and then be using words that you didn't even know that this person knew, right? Maybe a little mean. Or someone could have been maybe a tougher character throughout their life, and now they're calm as can be, if not a little bit out of it. Something that I want to make clear is that this is not a bingo board. Someone does not need to have every single symptom on this list to have Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. This is just a common list of symptoms that we might see, and we often see people's symptoms change over time. I alluded to this earlier, but just want to go into it a little bit deeper. Alzheimer's disease is a continuum. Someone is likely asymptomatic with Alzheimer's for as long as 20 years, where these proteins are building up in the brain, but they're not really affecting someone's ability to go through their day-to-day life yet. After that, someone might have their first few symptoms, and this is where the disease is often missed because we think the memory changes are a normal sign of aging. Who's heard that phrase before, right? But it's actually their intro into the Alzheimer's journey. Then once someone's symptoms are really significant enough to impact their day-to-day life, we say they have dementia symptoms due to Alzheimer's disease. We put someone in mild, moderate, or severe categories, not based on what specific symptoms they have, but how much is this disease affecting their ability to go through their day-to-day life? Is it affecting them just a little bit in the case of mild, or can they no longer do any of their activities of daily living, right? Getting dressed, taking a shower, making themselves meals in the case of severe Alzheimer's. In late, moderate to severe Alzheimer's, someone will require 24/7 care, and that can look like a couple different things. Now I'd like to talk briefly about how Alzheimer's is currently diagnosed, and this is a rapidly evolving landscape thanks to research. Right now, there's no single tool that by itself can confirm if someone has Alzheimer's disease specifically. A doctor is going to use a combination of tools to diagnose someone with a high certainty of Alzheimer's or another type of dementia specifically. They might do cognitive testing. This is what we commonly think of in memory testing. And this can be as short as a 10-minute test called a mini COG or mini cognitive test that can be done by a primary care provider, which is really just a snapshot of where that person's cognition is on a given day. Or this could be as long as several hours worth of testing, depending on the level of certainty that that doctor is looking for. They might do a physical exam, and this can actually often look like an MRI if we're trying to rule out stroke or other related vascular conditions that can give dementia-like symptoms, but that are treated very differently. And a neurological exam to test gait, reflexes, eye movement, especially if movement concerns or Parkinson's disease is suspected along with the dementia. Finally, we have biomarkers, which are ways that we can look at the body and determine if the actual proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease specifically are building up in the body. And there's a couple different ways we can look at those. So for a very long time, the gold standard in Alzheimer's diagnosis was something called CSF, which is spinal fluid or a spinal tap. If any of y'all know anything about a spinal tap, it is not fun. High level of certainty, not a very fun procedure to get that high level of certainty. Thankfully, we've moved past that, and the current gold standard is a PET scan, or a scan of the brain that can show us where what's called those proteins, those amyloid plaques, are building up in the brain. There's only a couple sites in New Mexico currently offering these scans because they really just became available, but we're working on building that out. Other exciting news is that as of this year, 2 blood tests have been FDA approved. They're not commercially available yet, but received their FDA approval to test if there's those buildup of proteins in the brain that shouldn't be there. Now, for the most part, these right now are a rule out, not a diagnostic tool. However, they will expedite the process of helping people get these diagnoses. But for right now, gold standard is a PET scan of the brain. Now, there's 2 different ways that we can treat or look at Alzheimer's disease, and many people will use a combination of the 2 or one or the other. There is symptom management medication. That's where we're not changing the progression of the disease. It's still progressing as fast as it's going to, but we're managing symptoms. We're helping people be more cognitively clear in the moment. We're helping manage mood, right? Because mood changes are a big part of this disease. We're helping people manage sleep, not changing how fast the disease happens. As of 2023, there are 2 new medications on the market that can only be delivered intravenously in a way that's kind of like dialysis, that can slow down progression of the disease by up to 30%. And while this is a small step, it's a huge step in the right direction, right? And many families will opt for this medication. These are a list of some of the most commonly prescribed medications to address Alzheimer's disease. You'll note that from 1996 to 2020, we were only symptom managing. We were not slowing down the progression of the disease. In 2023, these intravenous medications were released, are slowly unfolding and becoming more available across the country that can now slow down this disease progression. Currently, research is in the works to have these medications be able to be delivered in a pill form, not an intravenous form, but one step in research at a time. You'll note that the medications that are available for symptom management treat cognition and function, mood and behavior, as well as sleep. What's nice about the symptom management medication is that they can be administered throughout all stages of the disease process. Something that's important to note is that the medication that slows down the disease is only safe, ethical, and effective in the earliest stages of the disease. It's not necessarily ethical to slow down the disease journey of someone who's already very far along in the process and has significantly reduced quality of life. Okay, we got all the science out of the way. Is everyone okay? So now, after we've talked about what is Alzheimer's, what is dementia, what does the landscape of treatment and diagnosis look like, I want to talk about coping after a diagnosis, right? Because you go through all this, you get the treatment, you find out it's confirmed Alzheimer's, and then what? So there's a lot of common emotional reactions that happen in response to an Alzheimer's or dementia diagnosis. I speak with families every week and see often a mix of these, and especially mixes of these in one individual. Someone might feel fear about how life will change, what the future may hold, sadness or grief, about current changes and uncertainty ahead. Anger, right? Very valid emotion because the situation seems unfair, out of their control, right? It's a terminal diagnosis. Denial, when the diagnosis feels hard to believe. I often see a quite bit of this before we're moving into some of the other emotions. And then, interestingly, sometimes relief, because sometimes people have been navigating symptoms that are very confusing to them and their family members, maybe for many years. So sometimes there's a sense of relief in at least knowing, what are we facing here? It's not a big unknown. A sense of loss as abilities shift or routines change. And sometimes, though this is something we're really working to combat, is isolation if the person with dementia or their family feels like other people don't understand what they're going through. One thing that's really important in coping with an Alzheimer's diagnosis is understanding feelings and knowing that it's normal to feel numb or unsure about what to do next, very normal feelings. Most people, as I mentioned, feel a lot of different emotions at the same time and a changing emotional landscape as they process the diagnosis. There might be worries about family, about independence, about identity, right? How does identity change as memory and behavior changes? And it's important to know that emotional reactions can change even from day to day, not even over months in an individual, even sometimes hour to hour, honestly, I see in these care consultations. But what's important to do is taking care of, we'll talk about emotional and physical well-being. Accepting the diagnosis, and that doesn't mean accepting it as a good thing, but reckoning with, okay, this is part of my journey now. How can I address this versus pushing it away and pretending like it's not happening? If sadness, anxiety, or loss of interest last for weeks, as I mentioned, there are medications that can address that. There's other ways to address that, but there is medication that's safe and effective to help manage the mood swings that come understandably with a diagnosis such as Alzheimer's. And many people find strength when they name their feelings and explore ways to cope instead of trying to compartmentalize all of it, though the urge to compartmentalize is very understandable and also normal. I think one of the most important things in the Alzheimer's journey is making sure that we're combating isolation and making sure both the individual with dementia, their primary caregiver, and surrounding family are not alone. It really takes a village to support someone with Alzheimer's, especially in the later stages of the journey. And the more we can combat isolation and put up those support systems, especially early in the disease journey, the better. There's support groups all over the state. We're in dialogue about even starting more here, right? Really good to combat that isolation. And knowing that other people who are navigating the disease journey are likely feeling very similar things. Couple different healthy ways to cope, and this doesn't solve the problem, but it's a way to make the journey just a little bit easier while we're navigating it. Giving the individual or yourself, if you're navigating the journey, time to adjust and understanding that feelings will fluctuate day to day. Taking good care of the brain and body through regular medical checkups, good sleep, healthy eating. When I ran support groups in Colorado as part of the Colorado chapter, I noticed a major difference. I was running groups for people who were in the early stage of the diagnosis. I noticed a major difference in individuals who made lifestyle changes even after diagnosis versus those who threw their hands up and kind of gave in to the disease in their reported quality of life and how they were doing, even though these individuals were navigating technically the same disease journey. Focusing on emotional well-being, choosing to take care of feelings can help someone feel more prepared for the changes ahead, and using several coping strategies at the same time because different approaches help with different emotions. For instance, anger responds really well to movement, right? Anger wants to be let out of the body. Sadness wants people close, wants support, wants comfort, right? So different coping strategies for different emotions. Exploring activities that support emotional balance, such as talking with someone you trust, joining a support group, or speaking with a counselor or clergy member. Many people find their faith traditions extremely supportive during this journey. reminding themselves, right, that we're not alone. Many people share similar emotions, and connecting with others can help reduce that isolation and build strength. And remember that the individual with dementia, to an extent, has a choice about how to move forward in this phase of life with support, self-kindness, being good to the body, practical tools. Many people have a slightly gentler disease journey than they would have otherwise had if they tried to rebel and raise against it. All right, after talking about coping, we're going to talk about brain health. Now that I've thrown all these scary terms out there, we're going to talk about how to prevent this disease, because it is preventable in estimated about 45% of cases. And even for those who have Alzheimer's determined as part of their disease journey, healthy living can push back the start date of when Alzheimer's happens for someone. So instead of getting it in their 60s with healthy living, they might get it in their late 80s. And that's almost 20 years of quality of life that we've added just through making simple changes to our day-to-day habits. There are several risk factors, as I mentioned, for cognitive decline and dementia, and I'll talk about what those are. Some we can't control, but a lot of them we can. There's a lot of evidence, including a major study that was just released this summer, that shows evidence that healthy lifestyle changes does slow cognitive aging over time. And remember that our brains need to be taken care of at all ages. It's never too early if there's any young peeps in here, and never too late, right? In my case of those who were already diagnosed with the disease, to take care of the brain and make healthy choices. Let's talk briefly about what may impact risk of cognitive decline or dementia. And one of the things that I'd like to point out is notice how much bigger that yellow side, that modifiable risk factors, things that we do have control over, is so much bigger than the blue side, which is the things that we don't have control over. We can't control our age, we can't control our genetics, we can't, to an extent, control our birth gender or ethnicity, which all do play a part in someone's risk level of Alzheimer's or dementia. However, we can control whether we wear a helmet during risky activities. Maybe we have some skydivers, extreme sports people in here, right? Cover your head, right? Traumatic brain injury is a huge risk factor for Alzheimer's. Minimizing substance use, making sure we're taking care of our body. A little quick tip, and honestly, if you take nothing else from this talk today, what is good for your heart is good for your brain. If you're taking care of your vascular system, you're protecting your brain. So being active, and that can be a 30-minute walk 5 times a week. We don't all have to become like Arnold Schwarzenegger power lifters to prevent this disease, but just making sure we're getting outside, making sure we're staying cognitively engaged, learning about things that interest us through a lifetime, making sure we're taking care of our heart, as I mentioned, which can be done through really good sleep and a healthy diet. A quick note on genetics. Only 2 to 5% of the population have what's called deterministic Alzheimer's genes. That means for those particular individuals, our best hope is to push back the start date of the disease because they have genetic determination for this disease. That means for 95% of us, the entire rest of us, we have a significant amount of control of our risk of getting Alzheimer's or another dementia through living a healthy lifestyle. Now, I want to translate that into actionable habits and not just talk about what the risk factors are. As I mentioned, make sure we're protecting our head, protect our vascular system by being smoke-free, moving, controlling our blood pressure, and managing diabetes, right? All of those take care of our vascular system. Making sure we're eating right and sleeping well to keep our brain in prime function, to give our brain everything it needs. And stay in school and challenge your mind, right? Learn about things that interest you through a lifetime. And we don't all have to be PhDs either. It's just staying cognitively engaged in things that are interesting to you. For instance, I'm learning watercolor right now. I'm not very good at it, but it's the process of learning. All right, gonna do a quick resource overview, and then hopefully I have a little bit of time for questions. Our most important resource, maybe this is number 2 if you're only going to take 2 things out of here today, right? Heart health and brain health. Thing number 2 is that we as an association have a 24/7 helpline. This 24/7 helpline is staffed entirely by master level social workers, master level clinicians, or master level LPCs who are available for free 24/7. They are dementia experts and they can answer questions on resources. They have access to a local database that's updated here in New Mexico, so they can give you recommendations if y'all are calling from Carlsbad for long-term care communities in Carlsbad, for support groups in Carlsbad that we're going to work on building out, right? They're providing local recommendations. They're based out of Chicago, so they're not local to us here, but they can provide those local recommendations. Because they're master level counselors, they can also do care consultations. If you're starting to navigate this disease journey with your family, give them a call, give them a little information about your situation, and they will help you plan out all the next steps for when your loved one does go into those stages of decline over time. I think being proactive rather than reactive is extremely important with this disease journey. It minimizes crisis moments and helps you as a caregiver or the person living with dementia have a little bit of peace of mind because at least you have a plan for if different situations happen. What's also great about this line is because they're therapeutically trained, y'all as caregivers or someone living with dementia can call and say, hey, I'm having a really tough day emotionally navigating this. Can I talk to someone? You don't need to be looking for a resource. You don't need to be looking for a care consultation. You can just call to get that emotional support because isolation is not good for this disease journey. And it's really important that everyone knows they are not alone in this disease journey. If y'all don't happen to have someone close to you navigating the disease journey, or you're not the person, but you'd like some more information on dementia, maybe you want to understand your genetic risk because it runs in your family. Maybe you want to learn more about Lewy body disease. You can call the line just to get some information. We also offer free education and support across the state. We have seminars coming up across the state. We have 35 support groups that currently run in New Mexico alone, including 6 virtual support groups that anyone can join from anywhere. 2 of those virtual support groups are specifically for those living with Alzheimer's or other dementias. We also, let's see, the seminars. I did bring up the seminars. Our education is also available online for free. Y'all don't have to wait until we're here in Carlsbad to get this information. Every single education program that we deliver live in the community can be found on our website. So y'all don't have to wait till we're here. That education is available for free to you all of the time. We also have a virtual version of our care consultation. You'll put in a little bit of information not identifying about the person living with dementia, and it will spit back a custom list of resources that address your particular concerns. Maybe you're concerned about driving or wandering. It will share specific resources. Also, I have to plug it briefly. We have a new My All's Journey app. This is both for the recently diagnosed person and the caregiver. What's great about this? No passwords to remember, no username, no logins. We don't even take someone's name or personal information. All that's asked when someone first downloads the app on their phone is, are you a caregiver or are you living with the disease? And then what this app does is it takes our wealth of information on our website, which is a great tool, but there's a lot there, right? There's a lot of stuff. And it puts it all into one app in a streamlined step-by-step education format, so someone gets the content that's most important in a format that makes sense and they don't have to fish around on our website for 20 hours. All right, I know I covered a lot in a lot of different categories. Do I have time for questions? Do I have time for questions? Yes. All right, yes, ma'am. So the question is because there's many types of memory, short-term, long-term, retrieval memory, right? Like what's most commonly affected by dementia? Because the proteins don't discriminate about where they build up in the brain, someone may have their short-term affected, may have their long-term affected. What I most often see, most commonly see, is someone's short-term memory significantly affected, especially their ability to form or create new memories, but they often retain until the very end of the journey memories from very, very early in life. So my grandmother, for instance, was talking about the house that she lived in when she was 20 and asking if she could go there all the time at the end of her journey, and often talking about my grandfather who had passed many years before her, because in her world, in her memory, all of that was still relevant. He was still alive because that was the piece of the memory she retained, the long term, but absolutely nothing about the short term. I couldn't ask her what she had for lunch 5 minutes ago. Great question.
I've read, heard, talked to people, and there is extensive anecdotal evidence of the use of taurine in early stages of Alzheimer's and dementia. And to a lesser extent, black seed oil comes in capsules. However, the pharmaceutical companies, no one's going to do any scientific, because it can't be patented. But has anyone ever talked about taurine?
So 2 comments I want to make, and I'm going to make them broadly about the supplement industry in general. Something important to know is that the supplement industry is not regulated in the United States. If something is not a FDA-approved medicine, right, a actual pharmaceutical medicine, they can put pretty much whatever they want in that pill, and it only even needs to contain a percentage of what it claims to for it to go on the shelf. So there could really be anything in that pill. If a vitamin, if a nutrient, if a supplement corrects an imbalance that was already in the body, for instance, vitamin D imbalances are very common and can actually contribute to or worsen memory symptoms. For that person, taking a vitamin D supplement may then show an improving in symptoms because what you're really correcting is a vitamin imbalance. If any supplement were to do what many of these supplements claim to do, they would be flying off the shelves, making millions of dollars, and we would. Association's position is that aside from correcting existing nutrient imbalances, there's no one supplement that's going to either prevent this disease or stop it in its tracks or slow it unless that is already correcting something that was going wrong in the body in the first place. Great question, thank you.
Let's take one more, and then I think you're going to be on our panel too to take questions also.
Any more? All right, well, it was a pleasure to chat with you all today. I'll be around. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Julie Rogers. What a wealth of information. We are going to do our best to share the sites and the apps that she shared with us so that we all can have access to them easily. We have a special video that Chad Ingram, the CEO of the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce, secured for today. Please give your attention to the screens.
Hey y'all, my name is Jay Allen. I am a philanthropist and touring musician. My story is long, but I'm gonna keep it short for y'all. I lost my mother to what's called early onset Alzheimer's. She was diagnosed when she was 51. Unfortunately, it took her life in 2 years and 9 months, so she passed when she was 54. It was the most devastating thing I've ever had to go through, especially as a young man. I have 2 little sisters. We didn't know anything about dementia and Alzheimer's, so I had to educate myself quickly. While she was very sick, I was already touring. I was on the road. I had a song on Sirius XM The Highway, and so we were out opening up for big acts, big bands in front of thousands of people every night. and I would share this song that I wrote for my mom called Blank Stares at the end of our show. I felt like it was not being very impactful. A lot of these people were just there to party and have a good time and enjoy themselves. So that was frustrating to me. So it overwhelmed me one day on the road. We can talk to people to try to teach them till we're blue in the face. How about I show them? So we decided to bring my very sick mom at the time on stage at a show in Iowa, opening up for a big country artist in front of like 2,500 people, and brought her out on stage at the end of my set, wrapped her arms around me and mine around hers. I shared our story. Everyone went dead quiet, and I sang that song, Blank Stares. Someone took a video. They put it on their Facebook page. This was before TikTok was even a thing, before people were trying to create virality. This organically went viral. That video that person posted on their Facebook has now over 1 billion views. I've toured the world even after my mom has passed. I've shared her story, and I've used our pain to turn into purpose. Helped raise about $162 million to fight against dementia. Now we're raising awareness for caregivers. We're on a tour called the Living Gracefully Tour. I'm going inside of kind of high-end care communities and putting on fully produced country rock concerts for what started as the residents. Now it's for the caregivers and their staff, and loving on them and motivating them, because I think about my mom. At the end of her life, we had to put her in a care community, and she lasted about 6 weeks before she lost the ability to swallow. Her nurse, her point person, realized that she wasn't going to make it through the night. So when she clocked out that night, instead of going home like she could have, she decided to stay and to hold my mom's hand as she passed peacefully in the middle of the night. So my heart is huge for this cause. I made a promise to my mom before her last breath. My last conversation to her was on the phone while I was on the road, that I would honor her name and fight against dementia and Alzheimer's till my last breath as well. So thank you all for having this conversation, for helping raise awareness and be warriors in this fight. It is not an easy task, but all we can do is continue to have community and share our experiences and be brave. Thanks, y'all.
Okay, our second speaker for today, Catherine Lay, is one of 5 SHIP coordinators for the state of New Mexico. SHIP, State Health Insurance Assistance Program, is part of the New Mexico Aging and Long-Term Services Department. She assists older adults, caregivers, adults with disabilities, and their families in the southeast part of the state, counseling beneficiaries about Medicare concerns, connecting them with cost-saving programs, providing referrals for social services, and educating the public about Medicare fraud. Please help me in welcoming Ms. Kathy Lay, who will talk about state resources.
Hello, I'm going to start by just reading a land acknowledgement. With the Aging Services, we do this at every presentation. The Aging and Long-Term Services Department recognizes Indigenous peoples, past and present, that have been stewards of the region since time immemorial. These lands are home to ancestral caretakers and numerous Pueblo tribes who would come to include the Mescalero Apache, Jicarilla Apache, the Dene Navajo Nation. Each of these tribes has preserved and retained their language, stories, traditions, and maintains profound cultural ties to the land. As we come together today, we recognize and honor the significant contributions of all Native Americans. ALTSD also acknowledges tribal sovereignty and tribal self-determination, and is committed to building connections with tribal leaders, advocates, and stakeholders who share our mission to support lifelong independence and healthy aging among New Mexico's older adults and adults with disabilities. The things I'd like to just kind of touch on today, I'll first tell you one thing about myself. My name is Catherine Lay, and I am SHIP. I'll get into that a little bit more. We're going to talk about the Aging and Disability Resource Center briefly and give you a little overview of what that is, what SHIP is, about Senior Medicare Patrol and other programs with the Aging and Long-Term Services Department, and then just touch on some of the cost-saving resources that are available. One of the things that I will talk about is the mission statement, because we value recognizing that this is real people that are giving real answers and giving real options. The ADRC is actually an office that is located in Santa Fe, where there are options counselors. If you call the ADRC, it's an 800 number. You will not be talking to AI or someone who lives in another state or another country. You're talking to people that live in New Mexico. They are New Mexico residents, and they are employees of the state who specialize in helping people find resources in their local area. So when you have questions or issues or concerns, if you call and ask them about Medicare, they'll refer you to me, because that's my expertise. If you call about someone who's in a nursing facility and they are having some issues, they will send you to my coworkers, the ombudsman. If you call about needing, not being able to afford in-home health services and you're beginning to age and you have lower income, they may refer you to my other coworker over here who's with New Mexicare, a program that can actually help pay for people to come into the home that you know, your friend, family, relative. There are a lot of programs, and at the ADRC, they know about all these issues, resources, places that they can refer you to. So that is a place that is like a one-stop shop to help you locate resources. And the options counselors, they believe in helping people with long-term services and supports for aging well in your community or getting the help that you need. The next thing I will talk about is the home and community-based waiver. That is something that you can only register for at the ADRC. You call that number, and that is where you register for it. If you've never heard about it, sometimes referred to as turquoise care, it is when people want to stay at home, but they don't want to move to a nursing facility. They want to live in their home their entire lives, but they need to have in-home services and they can't afford it. It may need more than just to have a friend or family that gives you limited hours of health care at home or of support at home. And you need modifications to your home. You need longer hours, more help. The waiver service is based on asset, income, and need. And you register for it by calling the 800 number and talking to them, and again, filling out the questionnaire to see if you qualify for it or if your loved one qualifies for it. And then after you register, they will assess it. If you don't qualify right away, keep calling back as the situation gets worse or as your need gets greater. And then as you qualify, as your qualification bumps up higher, it can come to the point where the state recognizes you actually meet all those criteria, and they allocate funds that can help pay for that for you. So it is a wonderful program. It is called the Home and Community-Based Services Waiver. There's also an institutional care waiver for people that are in a nursing facility who have income that they can't afford to pay for the nursing facility. That is another waiver program. There are several that are available through the state, but this one specifically, ADRC is your go-to to register for this program and to find out more information about it. We have a website in addition to the 800 number. If you are comfortable on the internet or you know someone who is, especially if they have hearing issues, we have a live chat that is if you look at the website in the bottom right-hand corner there, you can click on that button and you can talk to somebody sitting in Santa Fe. I know the guy's name's Tariq, he's wonderful. And they will chat live with you and answer questions and help connect you to resources or schedule a call back so that you can ask questions about whatever it is that you're needing help with. That is a place that's open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So if that's something you like or comfortable with, that is a resource that you can go to. One of the things I specifically wanted to point out, and I added these screenshots specifically for the people here today. On our website, in the upper right corner, there's a little area. You hover your mouse over that or click on that. It's called long-term care. If you scroll down, you will see there is an Alzheimer's training tab. If you click on that, it will take you to a page where there are free classes. I even brought some flyers. We got some flyers over on our table. There are still 6 classes left to go that are free classes about all types of topics on dementia, respite care, health care, all kinds of things related to Alzheimer's and memory loss. If you scroll further down the page, there are also links to resources specifically for people that are going through or experiencing friends, family, or themselves with dementia issues. And there are a lot of help there that you can find on our website as well. One of the things that you can connect with by contacting the ADRC is SHIP. That's me. If you look on the back of your Medicare and you book there's a little thing that says, if you need help with counseling about Medicare or have questions, contact this number and talk to SHIP. And it's our ADRC 800 number, and they will refer you to me. What I do is I am an expert in Medicare. I don't like saying that because I feel like there's so little. I know just a little tip of the iceberg because Medicare is extremely complicated. And there are so many individual circumstances that can impact how that Medicare works for you or how it applies to you based on all kinds of things like where you've worked and what your retirement package is, and if you are a veteran, and if you're a veteran who's receiving TRICARE for life, or if you're a veteran who's receiving services because of an injury you sustained while you were serving in there's all kinds of things that impact how Medicare works and what it means for you and what you need. So by contacting us, we can help, they call it, navigate all of that complicated stuff. I don't work for an insurance company. I don't work for the federal government with Medicare. I work for the state. And I help my constituents in my little region. I'm in the Southeast region. I cover 9 counties, and I get to sneak over into Otero every now and then. So I kind of sneak over into that 10th one. But Eddy County is one of my counties. So you are my babies that I want to take care of and help, and that I want to kind of look after and make sure you have all the resources you need and understand what your options are for Medicare. So we always say we offer free, unbiased advice and guidance. We don't actually refer specifically to a specific insurance company or promote one over another. We just lay everything out for you to empower you to better make your decisions about Medicare and to understand about Medicare fraud. And so that's one of the things we do. I don't read every single slide. I'm really informal. But we just basically offer one-on-one counseling, presentations, and help provide resources about programs that can help you pay for Medicare. One of those programs I always like to mention is called the Medicare Savings Program. The MSP is what it's abbreviated as. The Medicare Savings Program is a state program that can help people pay for their Medicare, for your Part B or your Medicare Advantage plan. It can also, where the state can also pay copays and coinsurance, so that after you get your Medicare in place, whatever Medicare pays that 80% of, the state pays the other 20. And so this program, only a third of the people who qualify for it have applied for it. 2/3 of the people who qualify don't even know it exists or have not applied for it, where the state will pick up that other 20%. It's called the Medicare Savings Program. So that is a big one I always try to educate people about and let them know. The numbers, it's based on income, not your assets. It's based on income only. For people, then I'm just going to give a ballpark figure. If you're making less than $1,300 a month, most people that are in that ballpark qualify for the program at the highest level. If you're in the $1,700 a month or below that, there's 2 other levels where at least it'll pay your Part B monthly premium. And so if you're in those ballparks, you come talk to me. I can help you fill out the application for that one. And I can set up a time to meet with you and we can do that application together, or I can tell you where to go to do it if you want to do it online as well. That is a program through the state. There's also a federal program called Extra Help. That one has got an even higher level of income that you can qualify for that one. It is through a federal program that helps with prescription drug costs. And if you qualify for the Medicare Savings Program at the state level, you automatically get Extra Help too. So you're deemed eligible immediately. So getting one can get you both. If you're a little bit over income for the Medicare Savings Program, you still might qualify for Extra Help. So those are programs I want you to be aware of. There's another thing that we have that you can connect with through the ADRC. It's called Senior Medicare Patrol. I do a little bit of this in my spare time because they're filling that position. The person who was the Senior Medicare Patrol actually got promoted. She's amazing. She's wonderful. So we're kind of both sharing some of that. That is where we help educate people about Medicare fraud. And I'm going to tell you just right now so you know, Medicare, number one, they're not sending out new plastic cards. okay? No, they're not sending out new plastic cards. That's a scammer calling you, okay? So if somebody calls you and says, have you got your new Medicare card yet? We're sending out the new plastic cards, and if you don't verify your information, you're not going to get yours, and the old paper one won't work anymore. And they try to scare you. That is a scammer. They're trying to get your Medicare number, your Social Security number, your birth date, your address. Then they can bill the government under your account for things and get money from the government. I met a woman in Hobbs who had a wheelchair on her Medicare account that they paid for. Not a bill, she just got a statement. She didn't use a wheelchair. Woman in Lovington, $40,000 medical procedure was on her account. They didn't bill her for it. The government was paying for it. She never had anything done. So if you get a call from anyone saying they are Medicare, Social Security, or the IRS, and they need your information, do not believe them. Do not give it to them. They are scammers, and they're trying to get your information. And I'm going to tell you a freebie. I always like to throw in like a baker's dozen, right? Let me give you one more that's not Medicare related. Gentleman that I met in Ruidoso got a call from someone saying they were Roku TV, and he had a rebate coming because he had bought a TV and had Roku TV service. Well, he actually did have Roku TV service, so he believed them. They asked him where he wanted his rebate deposited, that they did automatic deposit, and he gave him his banking account information, and they wiped out his checking account. So the bank could not get it back. I met him myself. These are 4 people I have met in person. So I want to protect you. That's part of what the Senior Medicare Patrol does, is educate and protect people. And if you have been scammed or you suspect there's fraud happening, you can call the ADRC number and tell them, I need to report this. What do I do next? And they can give you guidance and steps for what to do. Okay, so that's something else that we always like to connect people with. There's a drug prescription assistance program that's available through the ADRC. That program is for people who maybe their drugs that they need, the prescriptions, are not covered by their insurance, or it's still very expensive and they're having a hard time paying for it. You can call the ADRC and see if there's maybe a program that could help you. A lot of the pharmaceutical companies have prescription assistance programs, and you may have to fill out an application for a specific drug through a specific pharmaceutical company, but they can guide you in that as well if you're having trouble paying for your prescriptions. Something else that we have is these are a large number of different departments or my coworkers. These are my wonderful coworkers that I am in the same office with, is the Adult Protective Services. Some people don't understand what this is. They help in urgent situations. They don't come in and take over things. They're there to help gird up when there's an emergency situation in someone's life and to help them get through it with urgent, important, really critical circumstances. That's what they do, and they're a wonderful team. I see what they do, and I'm so impressed with them. Long-term care ombudsman, which I mentioned, we have a table over here with them. They help people in the nursing facilities with being an advocate for them and helping them resolve issues that they're struggling with. Care transition, if somebody is in a nursing facility and maybe they've been there just for therapy and they've lived there for a little while and they're needing to go back home now, the care transition is someone who helps them make that transition home and that everything's in place. I used to be in the office with one of these gals in our southeast part, and I heard her dealing with problems where the person was sent home and they didn't send their prescription drugs with them, and they had to get their prescription filled like immediately, and she's helped them work through some of these conflicts and problems that they have. The Area Agency on Aging helps with like the senior centers. If you know somebody who needs home delivered meals, ADRC can hook you up with where to call to see at the senior center if they're available where you're at. We also work with the Office of Indian Elder Affairs, a new program called the Kinship Caregiver Program. That is a program. It's not available in our state, in our region yet, but they're hoping to expand it. So we're hoping it'll come here. It helps people who are like maybe grandparents raising grandchildren, or it might help a brother or sister, uncle, aunt, someone who's a kin of the person who is raising those children. Now, the New Mexico program is available in our region, in our Eddy County. That is a wonderful program I touched on really briefly. That is where if you qualify based on income, the state will pay a caregiver that you know. You pick a caregiver. It could be a brother, a child, one of your grown adult children, a neighbor. It could be a wife, a spouse, a husband, someone. It could be anybody you know, a friend from church. It could be someone you know that is willing to be your caregiver. And if you qualify based on income, then the state will help pay for several hours a month for that person to come and help you. So that you can contact the ADRC to learn more about that program. And then there's also a veteran-directed care. That is a program you can connect with through the ADRC if you're a veteran receiving your care through the VA services, where you can get in-home health care through the VA. The VA will pay for it. So that is one. Any assistance that you need, ADRC is like your one-stop shop to connect with all of us. You can apply for Medicaid programs, including the Medicare Savings Program that I mentioned, through Yes New Mexico. If you need to go there, you can. You can call me and I'll help you with that one. If you have questions about Medicare, there is a website. We recommend you go directly to the website. Don't just Google Medicare. You'll come up with so many spam websites. It's unbelievable. It's medicare.gov. So that is the main Medicare website. If you need to apply for Medicare, you haven't got it yet, and you want to apply for Medicare or for the Extra Help Program, you do that through the Social Security office. And it's ssa.gov. And I'm hitting a bunch of them, one right after another. Any of these spike your interest, you can come see me and I'll help you get the information about it, okay? There's also a website that's called the National Council on Aging. There are a lot of resources available there, as well as helpnm.com is another one that's a great resource for you. If you need help with utility bills, the state has a weatherization program, or the utilities have weatherization programs. PNM.com, as well as the New Mexico Gas Company.com. Those are great places that have utility assistance programs. And then for food banks, for food insecurity, to find out about all the places where you can get food. If you know somebody who is struggling with food, to help them, this is a wonderful resource that you can find out as well. This is my contact information. The best thing I can tell you to do to get a hold of me or to find out about any of the things I've talked about is to contact the ADRC at 800-432-2080. My table in the top corner, I've got flyers that you can pick up that have this number, magnets that you can stick on the fridge. I've also got lots of red hearts, okay? You see those red hearts? I'm pushing red hearts, guys. They ordered us 15,000 red hearts. And it's got the number on it. So grab you one of those red hearts. And if you need to get a hold of me to ask any of these questions, call the number on your red heart. And then you can reach me also by email. There's my email address. So thank you a lot. We do have a survey. I don't know that you can see that to get the QR code about the presentations that we do. But thank you a lot for letting me come and share today. I love helping people, educating people, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you, Ms. Catherine Lay, for so much wonderful information. We are going to do the drawing now. So your blue tickets, pull out your blue tickets. We have 2 prizes that were donated by Carlsbad Medical Center. Melissa Suggs went shopping crazy for these beautiful baskets.
So let's do this. Most of you know that we've got the $2 bill lady, Ann, in our presence. Ann, would you draw the winners for us? Would that be okay? We're gonna bring the raffle out. If you would draw the tickets for us. Yeah, we'll get it to you in just a second. Then while we're doing that, if our panelists, if you're mic'd up, if you guys wouldn't mind going up on your designated spot, and that way we'll be ready to start soon. Rhonda, did you spill all the tickets? All right.
I'm Roxy.
Last number is 590.
590. 590 over in the corner, gift basket from Carlsbad Medical Center. Okay, and we got one more.
$632.
632. Same table? No, one table over. Well, thank you guys very much, and thanks to Carlsbad Medical Center. And before we get started, can we give Veronica a big hand? She's been doing an awesome job as MC, and she's just doing a great job. So my name is Kyle Marksteiner. I'm the director of the United Way of Eddy County. I'm going to moderate this great panel in just a second. In a couple weeks, the Age Friendly Committee is going to host a Valentine's Day dance, and that's named after Janelle Whitlock. And every year they try to recognize Janelle in some way. But I submit to you that looking around this room today is the best possible way that we can honor Janelle Whitlock. When we think about how much great information and how many people, how many of Janelle's friends are here. And so no matter what happens at that dance, I think this is just an awesome way to honor Janelle and all the effort she did with the Age Friendly Committee. So thank you guys very much for being here today. We're going to do a couple panel rules. One of them, yes, we've covered some of these topics already, but it doesn't hurt to say it a second time. So if something comes up, and you guys also, all five don't have to answer every time. If you think something's covered, great, let's move on. We've got a lot of questions on our list, and then we'll take some audience ones. And then all of us, don't be afraid to speak up. I know I'm hard of hearing, and we want to make sure everybody can hear what you have to say. So you've met two of our guests already. We also have Dr. Leonel Perez Lamonte. He's a member of the medical staff at Carlsbad Medical Center. He serves as the medical director of the hospital inpatient rehab unit. She practices at Pecos Valley Neurology, CMC's affiliated outpatient neurology clinic. We also have Dr. Peter Jewell. He's the distinguished family medicine practitioner with Artesia General Hospital. He's often the first line of defense in identifying health changes in aging adults. He specializes in preventive health maintenance and the management of chronic and acute illness. And then finally, we have Roxy Nealing. She's the activity director and certified dementia practitioner with Lakeview Christian Home. She started working with Lanson Homes in 2007. After they closed, she joined Lakeview. She began assisting residents with dementia and sought to learn as much as she could. And then her mother was diagnosed with dementia, which ended up being Alzheimer's. And so she was able to take her lessons and help her own family out, which is wonderful. Yeah, let's give her a hand. And Rhonda has made it very clear to me that one thing we really want to talk about is prevention, on the onset. And so as we discuss all of this, those are certainly some specific questions, but even questions that are related, I think we should all try to tie into that. Our first question is, what are the earliest signs of dementia or memory impairment that families often overlook? And I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm not going to call on people most of the time. Does somebody want to start with that?
No, you go first.
You go ahead.
Fine, I will call on people.
We often see communication changes as the first visible sign of memory changes in someone, especially someone who used to be articulate, now can't put a sentence together or is really fumbling their words. Communication changes.
Doctor?
I would agree with that too, but what I see more often in my practice is usually it's the loved ones of the patient that's having issues that are noticing subtle differences. I would say that's almost 100%. In fact, I encourage people, if you're coming to see any of your primary care physicians, bring your wife or your husband, your brother, sister, somebody that spends a lot of time with you. That way, they can help us recognize what's different. The first speaker, because I walked in just a little bit late, I had patients I was seeing, but the first speaker today was talking about people putting their shoes in the microwave and keys in strange places. If I had $1 for every time I heard a story like that, I wouldn't need to work anymore. It's very, very common. In fact, I would say that's probably the most common thing that I've seen in my practice.
Totally agree.
Anybody else? So next question, how do normal age-related memory changes differ from clinical dementia? And Dr. Lamonte, let's start with you on this one.
So usually, and Julie did a great job covering that. But essentially, what you see is a transition into function. So the initial forgetfulness that we have described before can happen to anybody. Is when you start seeing that you no longer are able to function your daily activities. You have problems performing. You have difficulties recognizing family members, or all of a sudden you have difficulty driving. So it has to do with this past that daily life are usually pretty normal. When they start being impaired, it's essentially a sign that rather than just normal aging or regular aging, but the initial stages of what is called minimal cognitive impairment, that you're progressing most likely to Alzheimer's. You always look for those signs, not that forgetting the keys alone, but just like behavioral changes, mood changes, essentially. Overall, the way it started interacting is a little more erratic. Definitely the forgetfulness just gets more severe.
Anybody else? Okay, I know this was covered earlier this morning, but it needs to be repeated. What risk factors contribute to developing dementia? Are any preventable?
Hypertension, diabetes, poor nutrition.
Essentially, in my opinion, the prevention thing you have to be careful with the terms. You lower the risk of, so the risks are essentially what you can prevent. Patients that have had a CABG, a coronary artery bypass, are at higher risk of developing dementia. If you have hypertension, fluctuation, blood pressure, not only hypertension. So that's a risk that is more fiable. Obesity is also more fiable. So you definitely do that. Diabetes, you have better control of your glucose and sugar fluctuation. So that's also something that can be modified and lower the risk. Certain things you can actually, like women, like Julie said, like the risk is twice as high compared to men. Hispanics actually have 1.5 risk compared to the whites, and blacks also have increased risk compared to whites. So those things are not changeable. A general approach is essentially knowing that whether I have the genetic predisposition or not. There's a question about that later. Having a healthy brain and a healthy lifestyle to prevent any possible risk is what we should do. Avoiding injuries, clearly, if you have the risk of any activity that requires a helmet, then you want to wear a helmet. If you're outside, so.
And Julie had also mentioned when she was speaking earlier about learning. I went to a conference, I'm going to estimate probably about 25 years ago, that was on dementia and ways to help, I shouldn't say prevent it, that's the wrong word, but help to protect you. And they mentioned things like learning a new language, puzzles, and that could be any kind of puzzle. That could be a picture puzzle, that can be Sudoku, that can be crossword puzzles. Learning a musical instrument. Did I already say that? I started to learn how to play guitar, and I'm not very good at it because she had mentioned you don't have to be very good at certain things. I'm not very good at it, but I do that on the regular to kind of help stimulate my brain, create new tracks in the brain, and help prevent memory loss. I have a lot of the risks that were mentioned. I have diabetes, I have hypertension, and I had a bypass surgery 10 years ago. So I'm trying to limit and do as much as I can to help prevent it on myself as well too. Yes.
The only thing I would add, and great points, both of you, is that social engagement is also great for risk reduction as well. Social engagement uses so much of our brain, right, when we're interacting with each other. So it in itself is a cognitive exercise as well. Positive social engagement floods our body with these really happy hormones and neurotransmitters that over an extended period of time can help reduce risk.
So I would imagine the isolation of COVID caused a number of additional difficulties. Yeah. Let's do one more medical question, and then we'll get into some of the social issues. Going to any doctor can be intimidating. If you're going to a doctor with a diagnostic process about something related to memory concerns, what is that like? What happens? I mean, we all get scared of going to any doctor, but that's one I think that's probably especially personal.
As I stated before, I think it's best to bring a loved one when you do that. That can loosen or lessen the anxiety. And when you're not feeling like you can answer, that other person may help you come up with that answer. And also, I try to make people as comfortable as they possibly can when they come in. You know, starting off with just everyday kind of questions. You don't just break into our questionnaires that we use for determining dementia, et cetera. I would rather ask general questions like, well, how are you doing today? Get them a little bit comfortable and then work your way up.
I think actually it's interesting because a lot of I see a great number of patients that come in and they just because they're afraid that they may have dementia. Usually have it because a family member has it. Somebody that gets anxious about just getting a little more forgetful. So I see a general coping things about that. I'm concerned that I may have a diagnosis. And it's important to just realize that stress will take a life. A lot of these patients actually are coming concerned they really don't have dementia. They're rather distracted or a lot of stress or having certain circumstances that just make them a little more forgetful what they eat. And then it becomes an additional stress and anxiety. Depression can also mask dementia. I've seen some patients that essentially appear to be very demented for the most part. And then when they get started on depression, just because that being a strong factor as a risk just for that patient, they get much better. So I think the openness overall, just I'm surprised how many people are really willing to have this concern. Could this be dementia or not? Just being able to talk about it and know that actually the earlier you recognize it, the sooner one can just start using modalities and prevent the risk and starting medication if needed, just to allow it to get better and not to progress at the speed that it usually does.
And doctor, what role does the primary care physician usually? Do you initially address that with the primary and then everything else goes versus the specialist? You know, where's kind of the line? How far along the process, I guess, do you work with the primary care before you go to the specialist?
I think primary care physicians usually are at the forefront. They identify the issues of one. In many cases, the primary care physicians feel very comfortable just doing the workup and just starting the medications to delay the progress. We get referrals, of course, just in cases that require a little more complication with just to confirm the diagnosis or just to perform additional testing. But many family physicians in the community just diagnose the early stages of dementia and confirm. And then you can always see a neurologist. Additional care.
Thank you. Roxy, we're going to start with you on this. For those of you who don't know, Lakeview was featured in a national, was it a TV show about some of the services you guys offered. And so starting with Lakeview and then community, what resources are available in Carlsbad in our area for individuals facing memory loss?
Okay, well, there's several. There's the Carlsbad Artesia Adult Respite Adult Care Center, and it's right across the river. It's for early stages of dementia. They have to do almost everything for themselves. They have to be continent. The times there are 9 to 3, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 12 on Fridays. They will pick up your loved one or you can drop them off. There's also a new company here in town that I was very excited about. Cornerstone Caregiving. They don't have any contracts or deposits. Their process is easy. You just call or email, set up times to do assessments. The assessments are free. Usually runs about 30 minutes to an hour. They determine the level of care for your loved one. They're around-the-clock care, 24/7 support, and they can go through all this with you. I just, if you need, sometimes we get overwhelmed. I know, because we had, like I said, my mom had Alzheimer's, and so we also had some siblings that were facing some very difficult health issues at the same time. So we had to use these services to help us. So these are resources to help you at home if before you go to long care. There's also comfort keepers. They will go into the house. They're home for 24-hour care also. These people are to help with support, because it's hard to be a family member and a caregiver at the same time. Sometimes you get burnt out, and so these people can also help with these areas, and they can do day-to-day chores and help with bathing, and which that is very hard. Let me tell you, that's very hard to give your loved one a shower when they are still recognizing you as the child. They can help with transporting your loved ones to doctor's appointments and things like this. There's also Lakeview Respite. I don't know if you know about that. If, let's say, you're going on vacation or you just need a break, and you can take them to Lakeview, and they can stay there for whatever time. Of course, there's an application. Availability has to be there. You would have to speak with Melissa Caminero, and she will walk you through that process. And then, of course, there's these other ladies, the New Mexico Aging Services and the Alzheimer's Org of New Mexico group. So there's lots of resources out there. So I hope when it's total care, long-term care. Also, I forgot, I'm sorry. There's also Good Life Senior Living Care. I will speak on Lakeview, not just because I work there, but I do feel they give excellent care. There's so many that have been there for decades and have lots of experience with dementia and Alzheimer's, and giving quality care and providing their purpose. They still live on with their diagnosis, and I think that's the most important thing, is them living fully as much as they can, whatever stage they're in.
And it's 10 minutes to 1. If it's okay with most of you, I'd like to go a little past 1, because I think we've got some more ground to cover. We won't keep you here forever, but if we can go past. Catherine, in terms of some of the Navigator programs, ways that state resources available for people who just are overwhelmed and intimidated by what do I do next? Can you address that, but could you kind of go over that a little bit more? Just, where do I start?
Regarding the ADRC or regarding SHIP with Medicare?
Yeah,
Or both?
Yeah, both.
Yes. For those who are navigating Medicare, you can contact SHIP. We are just there to be a resource and to guide and to educate and to help find answers. The back of your Medicare New Book has a phone number. That is the ADRC, which is what I mentioned before. It is the Aging Disability Resource Center. If you're not sure what to do, and you're depending on what specific need you have, contacting that number and just talking to them, I recommend making some notes for things that you are specific resources that you're needing, having those notes in hand, and then contacting the ADRC and saying, I need help locating this in my region. Do you have any guidance or any help? They can kind of direct you to, it may be that they are not the ones that are directly offering that program, but they may be able to get that contact information for you for that specific program. Because there are so many, I'm just overwhelmed by how many different resources there are that are available, related to not just dementia and Alzheimer's, but to all kinds of needs that people may have as they're navigating those issues. Because they can have so many different needs related, not specifically just to memory and care, but all kinds of things that come up that you run into. So you can call there. I write down your notes and have some questions before you call. Journaling, I don't bring it up a lot. My father passed away from Alzheimer's and frontal lobal dementia. My grandmother passed away from Alzheimer's. So I saw the experiences that they went through and what my family navigated and all of the different kinds of issues that they ran into. So that is just that resource can help you connect to others. But if you just keep good journaling notes and making notes of what specific things you run into before contacting them, so you remember to ask all of those questions or call back multiple times so that you don't get overwhelmed, is another thing that I recommend. And I know it helps with doctor's appointments. My mom kept amazing notes. She kept track of little things that started happening and dates that things started happening, so they could track the progression of my dad's, his experiences. And they could track whether something worked or didn't work. So just writing down little notes. We have something over there that you're welcome to pick up. It's a little red notebook called Healthcare Tracker. It's like those old-fashioned checkbooks. And you can even make notes in that and use it in other ways to do that kind of journaling. But just making little notes like that, because it's really hard once you're sitting in the doctor's offices. I noticed with my mom, having those notes in hand that she had made before she went to the visit with questions that she had and with things that she had observed so that she could get maybe more guidance about those things. That was very helpful for her too.
And let's shift for a second. And first of all, for both of you who came down from the state, do we have permission to put your PowerPoints up on web pages and things like that?
I have sent a PDF of that PowerPoint, so it'll be even easier for people to download. So you are more than welcome to
Okay,
put the
great.
PDF up there.
Is that okay?
I'll send a PDF copy
Okay,
also.
perfect. Thanks. So we'll make it available on the United Way page, I'm sure the Health Council, and just a few places. Let's talk about assistance available to people who are caregivers, who are, family members who are overwhelmed. You guys have talked about that a little bit. Are there caregiver services? Are there support groups around Carlsbad? What are some of the resources available to people who are they're providing 24-hour care and they're fatigued, or they need to talk to other people going through similar circumstances?
I think those resources I just went over would be the best. If any of you ever want to call me at Lakeview, I do have ideas, lots and lots of ideas. Of course, I've been in the nursing home for 18 years, going on 19, and so I have a lot of experience besides my own mother, and so I can give you ideas of what to maybe try, or hopefully we can get started with a dementia and Alzheimer's program, and so that we can have a support group here in Carlsbad. That would be nice. I do feel that it's very important, but for now, if you want to contact any of these resources that I just mentioned, and including myself, and of course these ladies, they have the 24-hour care contact number as well. You could call Lakeview and ask for Roxy.
I think that one of the problems that we have, and I'm really glad that actually Julie's here, is with the lack of access to those services before patients are institutionalized. So it's very different when the patient is already at a skilled nursing facility in Lakeview, where the patient is already there, that's providing those services. So it's in the home health. I have it, some of the other agencies have some programs also. But I think as a community, the problem is that individual and families are having a hard time being able to care for the patients at their home longer as we would like to. So just essentially because it's overwhelmed, everybody's working, and sometimes there's a spouse that actually is equally ill, and I've had patients that actually the spouse also has Alzheimer's. So I think one of the issues with working with the state that would be really important would be to be able to have more access to programs that essentially provide help to the community, to be able to keep our family members at home longer while being able to just assist workers and caretakers in terms of their daily activities. And that's something that actually the community really needs to look forward to developing. That's been my experience.
So let's go down the line, starting closest to me. You guys have talked about this before, but as we talked about earlier, sometimes repeating it multiple times. If you could each say in terms of, you said, not necessarily prevention, but mitigation, whatever word you want to do. What's your advice to people when they go out into the world, healthy heart, crossword puzzles, if you could each just, a couple sentences on what your biggest suggestions are and what you think folks should do who just want to, do what they can to reduce risk.
Lose weight. If you are diabetic, keep your sugars low. Visit your primary care physician, whoever that is. If you are diabetic, keep that A1C at 7 or below. 65 and up, 7.5 and below. Lose weight. That's a huge one. Our entire country, the estimates are now up to 47% of our adult population is overweight or obese. Hypertension, see your primary care. That's what I do every day. I take care of diabetes. I take care of hypertension. I take care of obesity. I could go on and on and on and on. But those are the biggest risk factors right there. And I believe Julie was also mentioning social interaction. That's big too. We really do need to get out of the house. We can't stay as a shut-in. If you don't have anybody to talk to, your brain is shutting down. You need to use that brain. Brain power is very, very essential.
I think trying new things, maybe getting out and
Perfect point.
experiencing new revenues and just something that is not that you don't feel comfortable in. Go do something different. Just broaden your horizons.
In addition to what was already mentioned, I would say if you're noticing memory changes at all, especially as you move into the older adult portion of your life, start talking to your doctor early, because as was mentioned earlier, memory changes can come from a lot of places, and some of them are a pretty quick and easy fix, and some of them are not. But the new treatments that are on the market only work in the very early stages of the disease. So the earlier we catch the disease, the more options people have, the more time to financial plan, legal plan, emotionally plan for the disease journey ahead. And make changes slowly. We were talking about heart health, right? These changes work over a lifetime, and everyone leaving here and trying to overhaul their diet and their workout plan and all of that tomorrow might work for a week or two, but we know how New Year's resolutions go. Make changes a little bit at a time. That makes them sustainable and therefore more impactful.
Also, we didn't mention this, but some dementias are essentially reversible. They're based in nutritional. The deficiency in vitamin B12, for instance, can just cause the presentation of dementia that actually is reversible if you get supplemented properly. Usually part of the workup for dementia includes an imaging study, the clinical exam. This is the clinical diagnosis role. You need a clinical examination. You should have a TSH level, which is your thyroid check, and a B12 level. My question about B12s that I've seen is that labs usually reported normal B12 level for 100, less than 400, that's normal. In neurology, you want to have it certainly above 400. B12 level is difficult to be deficient if you're not a vegetarian. However, if you do not absorb the medication because you have an autoimmune process that doesn't allow to absorb the vitamin, then you need it injected. So Usually when memory, that's when initial workup, somebody has complaints of memory, they have to check the thyroid, check the B12, and check another parameter, inflammatory parameter. And usually when they are controlled, they really help, folic acid, they really help, essentially. Y también aprender otro idioma, me ayuda mucho también. Sabe que lo de un- so say guys, try to learn a little language, little by little. It's usually helpful.
I love that. My expertise is not dementia, but my personal experience with my dad and my mom and what they went through. Finding things that bring you joy in life and staying active, like they've talked about, I think is really important. My dad would take different routes home from work every day after he was diagnosed, trying to find, because, and like they say, doing the puzzles and getting out and doing things more often to remain social. And he absolutely fought it and lived very productively. And so that made a big difference. He was very positive and did not just assume that this was a death sentence for him or a hopeless situation. And so just keeping positive and continuing to find new joy in life and new things to do that bring you joy. So if you find something you enjoy doing, like language, I've been working on other languages. I love that. Painting, doing other things, doing the puzzles, all of that. And especially maintaining those social contacts. Those were things that they found very helpful.
Thank you. So I'm going to do one more question, and then let's take a few audience questions, if that's okay with y'all. And I did want, when we put events like this together, you never know how much interest you're going to draw. At one point, we talked about 20, 25 people, and we would have been happy. I think we got about 130 in the room today. So there's obviously a lot of interest in this topic. Where should we as a community go from here to continue to provide assistance to each other and to support each other on this?
You want to start with? Okay. On the website or on my slides that they're going to be putting up as a PDF, on the page that talked about Alzheimer's classes and things, there are links to various resources. I just turned to them, like the New Mexico Caregivers Coalition, the Memory Care Alliance, the Family Caregivers Center of New Mexico. There are a lot of resources. Some of these additional experts have given amazing resources. It can be overwhelming, so pick some and start looking into some of those things, because you making those connections and educating yourself, then you can be a resource for other people. So what you learned today, multiply, give those resources to other people around you. And whatever you find that really strikes well with you, to pass that along so that we can multiply the impact of today's event.
Anybody else?
I would say that real sustainable support for a community comes from and originates within the community. If you were watching me talk today and thinking, I could do that, we're recruiting volunteers across the state. I'm happy to train any of y'all.
Can I say us too?
We train community educators across the state. We train support group facilitators across the state. We train people across the state who go out in community and share information about this disease. If you're fired up about this today, come talk to me and grab one of my cards, or call our office, our main line out in Albuquerque, and we can talk about getting you set up as a volunteer so that you can have an impact in your community and make that change that you want to see.
How about a few audience questions? We've got a couple of mics. There's one in the back there. There's one over here. There's one up here. You want to get a mic? Okay, we've got a mic there.
Sorry.
Hello? Go ahead.
I appreciate all of you, especially the doctors that have come and spoken. And I know you've all talked about lifestyle, but one thing that has not been mentioned, you talked about the drugs, like the illicit drugs. Everybody knows those are not good for our minds or our bodies. But what about alcohol? That's very common. Let's get real, let's get honest. It's very common.
Alcohol is a very huge risk factor for dementia.
Doctors up.
Yeah, so alcohol is one of those risk factors. we should have mentioned when we talk about obesity, about heart disease, about hypotension, about hypertension. So alcohol is one of them. So one should not recommend any alcohol whatsoever. There have been some studies in the past that alcohol is good for cardiovascular health, but everything has to be in really moderation. So we would not recommend drinking alcohol, but certainly if you drink alcohol, decreasing the consumption of alcohol is part of achieving brain health, and it's a modifiable risk for developing Alzheimer's or any of the dementias.
And then my other question was, you have not, at least I don't believe I heard anyone really discuss the problem of the person that you believe is in. What about the denial of that person? How do you deal with the denial?
If I may, one thing that has been found helpful, that has worked for some families, especially if the family is willing to have someone go with them to a doctor's visit. Most people go and get regular yearly doctor's visit. Ask to go with your loved one who you suspect has memory changes. When you check in, go and have them sit down, and you go and check them and yourself in. Write a note that says, "We would like to talk about memory concerns today," on a paper, and hand it to the nurse when you're checking in, and let the doctor be, sorry y'all, the bad guy. Sorry, who brings up the memory concern. And then if you're really suspecting your loved one is not going to broach that topic with you, they may broach it with a doctor.
I would say that happens at least once a week in my practice, at least once a week.
Great. Dina, why don't we do your question and then up here?
Just wondering, is it true that hearing loss is linked to dementia and Alzheimer's? Is that true?
What was that question? I
Hearing
didn't hear
loss.
that.
Hearing loss.
Yes, there is a strong correlation. Absolutely. And that goes along without saying some of the other things that we were talking about. If you're not having any stimulation, brain-wise, you're not speaking to people. If you can't hear those people, that brain's not really, going. So yeah, you should definitely get hearing exams at least once a year as well too.
Okay, why don't we do up here and then Karen over here after that?
My question was, there's a lot of advertising on TV about Prevagen being a supplement that's supposed to help the brain. How credible is that?
I get asked that question a lot.
Me too.
And I think, Julie made a good point about the problem with medications that are not FDA regulated. My daughter actually went with part of an initial study where they were looking at jellyfish and extracting these substances that actually found to enhance memory. A lot of it is anecdotal. My approach is essentially that you have to be careful with supplements. A lot of people, if they do no harm, I really do not recommend it. So if you feel comfortable and happy taking it, and because there's always that extra effect that we have of believing in what we're doing, and you have to believe. So if you believe that it's going to help you, it most likely will help you somehow. As long as it's not creating a problem of creating with something else. Basically, just take a lot of supplements, and they have extra stuff that they create with problems with coagulation, problems with inflammation, and so forth. So, but I think everything within reason, and if you believe that this supplement is going to do you well, and it's not going to do you harm, and it's not interacting with anything else, I would not tell you not to take it.
If I can add to that too, we do, because he had mentioned B12 earlier. B12 has been proven to help with certain areas of dementia. However, Prevagen, that's questionable, and Prevagen is very, very expensive, extremely expensive. And I'll take you back to the time before I became a physician. I was in organic chemistry 35 years ago, and we ran vitamin C through a mass spectrometer. And what that does can tell you the exact amount of vitamin C is in there. Vitamin C has been around since 1958. And I can tell you we took 250 milligram tablets, and some of them came back with 2,000 milligrams, some came back with 0, some came back with 250. Whenever I recommend that somebody use a supplement, this is 100% of the time. Everybody in this room has one of these. Everybody. Type in the name of the company and see if they've been around for more than 5 years. The ones that were around for more than 5 or 10 years were more likely to have what they said was in it. Take my advice on that. If you don't, Julie had said earlier, if you remember anything, that's one of the things that I'd like you to remember. Because I recommend supplements on the regular, probably at least 10 times every day I do. However, not all of them are made equal, okay? There are snake oil salesmen out there, and most of the snake oil salesmen are the people that haven't been around for very long.
We got one in the back here. Let's go ahead and do Karen.
Okay, this is going to be a little off subject, but a couple of years ago, before COVID, I was taking care of someone that had dementia. Where do you go for elder abuse? Because I noticed that there was some abuse, being put on the mother, because she couldn't remember things. And so they didn't even want to take care of her. They didn't want to change her. And they waited for me to get there. And so there were days when she laid in her waist until I got there, like over the weekend. So who do you call for elder abuse?
Adult Protective Services. They are my angels that I just love dearly. Adult Protective Services can respond to cases of neglect, of abuse, of self-neglect. If someone themselves feels that they are incapable of caring for themselves and they're in a crisis, they can self-report. But there, you can contact the 800 number at the ADRC, Aging and Disability Resource Center. One of the options on that menu is the Adult Protective Services. Reports can be made anonymously, or they can be made if you give your name. They will not give your name, but that way they can contact you back if they have additional questions. Sometimes there are issues trying to locate, maybe there was something that wasn't clear on the message and they need to get back with you. But self-reporting yourself or reporting for someone else on their behalf, Adult Protective Services is a wonderful resource.
And I think Noreen has something to add to that discussion, and then we'll go over to Michael.
I just wanted to add that for your family members who may be in denial and they say, I'm fine, I want to live independently, getting them connected with things like Meals on Wheels. If they don't want to come to the senior center to have lunch, connect them with Meals on Wheels, because the people that deliver those meals are mandatory reporters. And if they see a person is in poor care, they're going to call Adult Protective Services on that person's behalf. So if you are fearful of things like that happening, don't be afraid to call Adult Protective Services. The other thing is, if your family member is in a long-term care facility, reach out to the Ombudsman program. We are the Ombudsman in Southeastern New Mexico, and we will go investigate that issue.
Thank you. Michael?
Could you tell us about vitamin C? Is it a myth? Is it a real thing? Is it you need more, you need less, how much, whatever, what source?
Are you talking about overall or with Alzheimer's? Okay. So vitamin C is better for prevention of things like the common cold. Once you have the common cold, that emergency stuff, you need to take it daily. If you really want to help prevent, it's more of a prevention, not after you already have it. After the fact, you might as well just throw it out the window. I actually took part in research of vitamin C and zinc when I was in residency. So I can tell you, at least with the research that I've read and I conducted, I would say that it's better for prevention, not once you have it. Also, vitamin C is actually really good with wound healing as well, too. So
I am a strong believer in vitamin C, actually. And,
I am too, so don't get me wrong.
yeah, just to tell you, the jury's out there with this, and you're going to have different views, certainly. So you have to go with what you believe. So I believe vitamin C. Linus Pauling, who actually is a Nobel Prize winner for it, had to do with DNA, and so this guy was a big believer in mega doses of vitamin C, more than what actually the numbers that we even talk about in terms of for prevention of cancer, for prevention of inflammation, and so forth. It ended up actually, he ended up having prostate cancer in spite of the mega dose of vitamin C, but he always felt that his cancer would have been worse. So at the end, everything in reason, you know what I'm saying? It certainly is an anti-inflammatory, it really makes a difference with the colon and inflammation, so vitamin C is good for it.
You got a number you can tell us daily?
It would not, it would. I'm gonna go to this number. My number may be a little high.
Why don't we, can we take one more question? And let me,
Okay.
and then we've got one more.
Okay.
Do you wanna-
I just wanted to give some information in regards to scamming calls. My brother has a really good trick. What he does is he says, you know, I'm really having problems listening to you. Will you please call me back at this number, my other line? And what he has handy is the number of the local FBI number, and that works.
So Rhonda, I think Jody Knox wants to come up and say a few words.
I'm sorry that I wasn't here at the very first, but I thank you guys for putting this on, and we were very honored to get to host you. One of the things that I would like to say is a little bit of a brag, but I think it's important to this conversation. I know y'all talked a little bit about medicines. For many years, our staff would be frustrated when dementia patients were really having elevated problems, behavior problems, those kinds of things. And what do nurses do? They call the doctor. And what can a doctor do but a lot of times prescribe, send to the hospital? I mean, you don't have a whole lot of options. So for several years, the common answer was antipsychotics. CMS, the federal government, a few years ago said antipsychotics are not appropriate for dementia patients. And we really got to looking at that, and we had a large volume on. We had 26% of our dementia patients were on antipsychotics. So we got on the bandwagon to learn more about it and to try to limit those. And we went down to, we are now 0. We are so proud of ourselves. And furthermore, we applied for American Healthcare, the Nursing Home Association, National Association's quality awards. The first year, and we used our whole program of not taking antipsychotics and went for a bronze level Malcolm Baldrige Award. And then last year we got the silver, which is a huge, big deal on a national basis. So I'm bragging and I apologize, but the reason I want to tell you the story is what we saw. It's so easy to medicate instead of learn the tools. And what we saw were increased falls, people quit drinking, people quit eating. They really regressed horribly. And you know, when you really stop and think about it, we did that for us. And I don't mean just us as caregivers in the home. Sometimes you're frustrated, you're tired, you don't know what to do. But the tools that they give you to help you learn how to respond appropriately, those antipsychotics are not the answer. And so I'm really here today to encourage you. If your doctor's encouraging you to put them on that, please really think about it. They're not appropriate. And you can have tools if you reach out to these people to help you with that. So 0 in our building. And so if someone applies to come into our building and they're on them at home, they have to get off before we will take them as a patient. So again, I'm really proud of the work we did, but CMS, the federal government, started that. So we're very proud.
I would like to clarify a little bit on that. I mean, we have to give a blanket statement. So essentially, the recommendation for antipsychotics is in patients with Alzheimer's has to do, with patients with dementia, has to do with the fact that they can induce additional falls. They can induce falls and disorder sedation. Every for sedation, or lethargy, and more complications of damage. But everybody's different. Rexulti, which is actually a medication, is one of the antipsychotics that actually has been approved for dementia. It's a new second-generation antipsychotic. It is antipsychotic, so it's part of that family. And it's actually recommended for the treatment of agitation in certain patients with dementia. So what you want to keep the patients essentially on no psychotropics whatsoever, no side medications. The only way, if a patient is really violent and agitated and is in the home setting, you really have, unless you have a 24-hour person taking care of and supporting that patient, it's very difficult, literally impossible for the caretaker not to be able to give that kind of help, which is the reason why this approved antipsychotic resulting actually happen. Now, what's the problem with resulting? It's extremely expensive. So every time I try to prescribe it, patients cannot really afford it, some samples and so forth. But it works. And at the end, what you want to do is aim for that balance of moderation. You know, if you require a small dose of something that is going to control behavior, induce sleep, and so forth, as long as it doesn't turn you into like being drooling and being incapacitated completely, it's a different story. So I think that's what you have to look. Now, CMS was very strong with settings, nursing homes and skilled nursing facilities. Essentially, what was happening was a little bit abusive in terms of just not caring for the patients because they were just being incapacitated with medication. So that was not the goal. The goal essentially is to provide care, keep you functioning as much as you can, but at the same time protect yourself. Somebody was mentioning about a patient that is aggressive about violence. I've seen those, and they are going to require some type of medication to control their behavior. So that's important to discuss with the physician. Usually I discuss it with the patients exactly always they need and there's no need. And sometimes very low dosages of the medications that are approved to be very effective. So that's part of the arsenal tools taking care of patients.
Let's give these panelists a hand. They did a great job. So thank you guys very much. I think we probably need to wrap up. We got 2 doctors up on the stage who need to get back to work unless you guys have any final comments you want to
I
make.
just wanted to say something. Sometimes these types of behaviors come from needs that are not met. So look at that also. Maybe they're hungry and they're not able to speak it. Maybe they're thirsty. Maybe they need to use the restroom. Maybe they're in pain. Look at these types of responses before, you go right into maybe medications. One thing I really want to say is allow them to be themselves for as long as they can. Sometimes I see a lot of families that are taking over their role and doing things for them, and that doesn't help stimulate their minds or let them be themselves. And they want purpose too. And so let them do as much as they can for themselves for as long as they are able to in whatever stage they're in.
Thank you. Any other parting words?
Just a follow-up comment on that as far as behaviors as a potential response to pain. If you have someone who's maybe here in their dementia journey and overnight or over a series of days seems to worsen and especially increased agitation suddenly, have them be checked for a UTI. Very, very common cause of a very sudden change of symptoms. And thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for. So on behalf of the Age Friendly Committee, I do want to remind you of our Valentine's dance, which is what day? February 4th, a good day for a Valentine's Day dance.
5 times a month.
And then also, we want feedback on what other events similar to this we can have in the future, what other topics. So please speak to any of us or the folks at the ARP table in the back and give us your ideas. How could we have improved this event? What other suggestions would you have on other similar ways of doing this? I thought it was great, but we always want to improve and do more. So thank you guys very much. Did you need it?
And I just want to, I don't know if you're picking me up here, but anyway, I just want to add that if we can, so I'm Dina Navarrete, let me say that first. Dina Navarrete with the City of Carlsbad, Director of Community Development. And under my purview, I have the 2 senior centers here in town. Many of you already know, but we're going to open in about 6 weeks a brand new facility over at the Cascades. It's 2.5 times the size of the North Mesa Senior Center, and we have so many plans for activities. We already have a very long list of activities that we have going on at the Senior Center for all of you. So taking some of the advice that our panel has given you to go out and try new things. It's arts and crafts. It's all kinds of aerobics. We have music classes. You can learn to play the piano. You can learn to play the ukulele and all kinds of other things. So please take your time to go and visit one of these facilities so you can see how hard the staff works every day to bring you guys the kind of things that you will need to battle this horrendous disease.
And
Thank
by
you
the
for
way,
coming.
the City of Carlsbad paid for lunch, so give them a hand for this. All right, let's go home, everybody. Thank you very much.